There's so much there, and I want you to keep going. A couple things I want to unpack there. Number one is this unrealistic image for women. It's really interesting.
Yeah.
With men, it really isn't that way. If you look at football, Tom Brady has a few ads. He's the good-looking dude, right? He's got a watch ad or whatever. But the guy that got all the ads was Peyton Manning. It was the everyman when it comes to men. With women, these unrealistic images, especially in the beauty industry, for the most part, are the images that we see. And so you really did revolutionize an industry. That's number one. Number two, it's interesting to me that your dream was to be a broadcaster. I got to tell you, we both bagged groceries at Safeways, and I was a broadcasting major in college, and that was my dream. I didn't know it was going to show up 30 years later, after my entrepreneurial journey. But I think life starts after your first dream goes away. I really believe that's where you're defined. And I'm so curious about this journey with the rejection. I have a philosophy. I don't know if you agree with this. I love the title of your book, Believe It, because what you're talking about, turning up this volume on your inner voice and turning down the external rejections. Mm-hmm. Those rejections you got were over and over again. I was telling my son this, who thinks he wants to be an entrepreneur. He said, Dad, what's one of the things that most people wouldn't tell you? I said, I don't know, that maybe the most important thing is your ability to deal with rejection as an entrepreneur. We talk about vision, we talk about, communication, but can you deal with the rejection? And in your case, it broke my heart, but there was one meeting you had where you thought you had a deal finally, right? With this VC guy. And I want you guys just to feel the depth of the rejection that you may experience as an entrepreneur. And could you do what Jamie did and still push back? So picture years and years of rejection. You're running out of cash. You're working out of your living room. Everyone's telling you no. And then this dude almost says yes, but then really hits you with a hard no. Tell him about that.
Yeah. And I thought literally he was going to be my saving grace, right? Because again, we were down to no money, and we got interest from a private equity company, and they loved our products. Our product worked, like it really worked. So they loved the product, and they wanted to have meetings. So we started going down that path, and they were really big. I mean, they are really big. They've invested in a ton of consumer product companies that you and I buy at the grocery store, and they made a lot of them household names from nothing. And I just thought, oh my gosh, if they invest, A, I'm not going to go bankrupt. Yeah. B, maybe they'll help get me into all these retail stores that keep telling me no and keep telling me I'm not the right fit and all that. And so, we did meeting after meeting, and we started the diligence phase, which is, where you show all your projections, your product pipeline, everything. And it got down to the last meeting, and my husband, Paulo, and I flew up for it. And I thought, like, this is it. Like, this is going to be it. And I'll never forget, the head guy was standing about 3 feet from me. And he thanked me. He said, that we should be proud of the product we created. And then he says to me, and he's about 3 feet from me, face to face. And he says, so I want to let you know it's a no. We're going to pass on investing in IT Cosmetics. And I said, okay, like I'm used to hearing no at this point, right? And I'm like, all right, well, can you tell me why? Because usually feedback is a gift, usually. And I'm like, can you tell me why? And he's like, do you want me to be really honest? And I said, yeah. And I'll never forget, like, I remember just like him looking at me for a minute, and I remember feeling my heart racing really fast. And then I remember seeing his lips move in slow motion. And he basically said, he did say straight to my face, I just don't think women will buy makeup from someone who looks like you, with your body and your weight.
Wow.
And I remember it was this moment where, for me, it was almost like this lifetime of body doubt and self-doubt kind of like flooded my body, and almost felt like I was staring my own fear straight in the eye, listening to him. And I knew I had to keep my faith bigger than it. But Ed, in that moment, like, it's wild. I actually, it hurt. Like, I literally went in my car in the parking lot and cried my eyes out. Those things hurt. But what stands out to me in that moment, and I actually never felt, I didn't get mad at him. I still am not mad at him. Because guess what? The whole reason, that whole why beneath the why on why I was doing this company, like, he literally passed on investing in my company because he had the exact same mindset, right? That everyone else does about what you have to look like, the box you have to fit into to be successful. And he's just as much I don't want to say victim, byproduct maybe of the whole beauty industry too. He's passing on an investment in my company because of my weight. And I remember this moment, but the thing that sticks out to me most is, in this moment, I had this feeling, this deep feeling, like as he's telling me this, that he's wrong. And I had that feeling, but I knew nothing yet that I had done proved that, because I had no sales yet really. And I also knew like proving it would first and foremost hinge on me believing it for myself. And, you know, fast forward. And by the way, in the years after that, like it's discipline of recognizing when someone else's voice is playing in your head all of a sudden. And I listened to a show you did actually where you scratch it and right. And that's what I have to do over and over. Like I'd have to literally get really good at turning down the volume on those things because, oh, and I want to tell you a full circle moment that happened. It's so good. But like, I feel like that, what you just shared about telling your son this advice, right? I feel like that's everything because I feel like so many people, what ends up happening is everyone else's rejections, right, end up like equating to self-doubt in our own head, our own self-doubt about ourselves. We start to turn the volume up on that to the point where with all of it, with everyone else's opinions, and in my case, the lack of success around me, it can get so loud that we can't even hear our own internal knowing anymore. And I feel like so many people, and then you have your friends and your family, like they mean the best, but they're seeing you through their own lens of fear and inexperience, right? And so between all of it, so many people I feel like end up literally talking themselves out of their own calling and talking themselves out of their own truth and staying in their comfort zone at like the cost of it chipping away at their soul. We've all done this. And literally missing out on the person they're born to be. Wow. And I feel like and my story is like years and years and years of rejection. But when I look back at the things I did wrong and the things I did right, usually like my biggest mistakes came down to when I actually didn't listen to something I knew in my gut. And I decided to go with something an expert had told me when it didn't feel like quite right. And the biggest successes are when I really listened to that knowing, even when it went against what other people told me. So like this guy telling me this, had I changed who I was, right, and tried to fit some mold that he said would sell, if that was who I was authentically, then great. But it's not for me, right? And so had I ever conformed to him or any of those retailers that told me change this, change that, and maybe we'll bring you into our store, or L'Oreal that for 3 years of meetings said no and all the things I needed to do differently. Had I listened to most of any of that, especially the parts that didn't align with my gut instinct, I would have never sold my company for over $1 billion. I probably would be out of business. So that's
you hear yourself when you say this, Jamie, where you're like, I would have never sold my company for $1 billion. Still, when that comes out of your mouth, is there a part of you like, I sold my company for over $1 billion? Does it still hit you a little bit?
On one hand, I still can't process it. On the other hand, you'll understand this when I say this. And you won't judge me for saying this. And I believe actually everyone in your community, I believe they're part of your community because they'll understand this too. Selling your company for $1 billion is exciting, but like for me, I don't feel like I'm put on this earth to compete with anyone else. I feel like I'm put on this earth to compete with who God made me capable of becoming.
Amen.
And I feel like I'm just getting started. Like I'm not there yet. So selling a company for $1 billion is exciting, but like, I feel like stepping into all of who I am and serving and giving and all the things I'm really called to do, I still feel like I'm not there yet. By the way, you talked about-
I feel like having watched you speak a couple times and then listening now, I feel like all of that happened, all of the struggle, all of the ups and downs, all of the selling of the company, all you've learned, all you've been able to articulate, your broadcast background, all of that stuff is leading you right now to your time. Like I think you were called for what you're doing now, which is teaching and inspiring people and giving them hope. However, you did say it came full circle. Yeah. What did you mean when you said that? What's the full circle?
Ed. Okay, you love this. Okay, so this is so good because I actually never got mad at him, right? Because for me, it was like something bigger than him. Yeah. so 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 fast forward a few years, and when we actually ended up selling to L'Oreal, it was their largest U.S. acquisition in their history, and so it made the homepage of Wall Street Journal, a bunch of stuff like that. And the day that the deal was announced, I got an email from him, and and he said, congratulations, I was wrong, so proud of you. That whole thing he did, and also I learned that it would. So two things I learned: it would have been the most successful investment in his firm's history. But here's the thing, and this is where our setbacks, I feel like, oh my gosh, our setbacks, even when they suck, like it sucked to hear him say those words to me. It hurt. I cry, like it hurts, right? Rejection in almost any form basically says to us, you're not enough. You don't belong. You're not worth, I don't think I will make money off you, or I don't believe in you, or it comes in all those forms, and it sucks. But I really believe, even almost all the time, when I look back at almost all the rejections, I feel like that, like, again, those setbacks really are setups. And sometimes rejection is really like serendipitous grace, wrapped in this package labeled painful rejection. And what I mean by that is, I was so desperate at the time. I think you just posted, I just saw your thing where you're like, scarcity is value. Yeah. So yeah, I had no scarcity back then. I would have given him like any part of my company. We were down to under $1,000 in our bank account. I didn't know how we were going to survive. Had he wanted to invest, had he said yes to us that day, I would probably give him the majority of the company for probably almost no money, just hoping to survive. But because he didn't believe in me, and because we got so much rejection along the way, when we ended up selling to L'Oreal 8 years into the business, I was still the largest shareholder.
That's awesome.
And so, right?
I love this. Serendipitous grace. I may steal that from you. That is beautiful. And you guys have to say something. That's why you want to get this book. It's loaded with information like this. It's loaded with stories like this about believing it. Why do you need to believe it? Let's just unpack this rejection thing, and then we're going to get to a magic moment. The reason that I think your ability to deal with rejection is so important, it's not talked about enough. Let's just be honest. You know why 99.9% of dreams die, everybody? You eventually get too much rejection. So if that's the thing that's going to cause you not to get your dream, 99.9% of the time, it's just there becomes a threshold that people don't take the rejection long enough. So they don't stick around to receive the grace. And so if that is true, if we already know that going in, then why not pre-negotiate in the very beginning what price you're willing to pay? Hopefully it's anything, as long as it's legal, ethical, and moral, so that the 99.9% of the reasons why your dream won't happen, you've already set in your favor if you've just decided you'll take the rejection. That's why it's such a big part. How do you take the rejection? You got to believe it. And that's why this book is so powerful. So we lead to this point, guys. And again, the beautiful thing about Jamie's story is it's her vulnerabilities and her authenticity that made the brand relevant, all the way up to the extreme magic moment. Don't hide your insecurities. Don't hide your blemishes, guys, figuratively and literally in your entrepreneurial journey. Get people wanting to root for you. Your fears and insecurities are what connects you with the marketplace. Ironically, you don't have to hide them. You can work on them, but there's nothing wrong with saying I have them. So finally, somehow, you get this moment on QVC, right? And you are so brilliant in this moment. You ask them, I'll let you tell the story, but to me, it's like, if you don't do this thing, again, maybe it still doesn't hit all the way to the last second, the last moment. It was your vulnerability that connected you with the audience. So everyone listen so closely to this woman who sold her company for $1 billion plus. So here we go. Take us to the moment.
So yeah, one of the biggest lessons in my whole life came down to this moment where we finally got a shot on QVC, right? And so, we had heard no from them for a couple years. And even Ed, I got their head guy named Alan Burke, who built this $1 billion division in QVC of beauty. And he's a legend, like an icon. After, 2 years of no's from them, I finally got him on the phone. And I thought, oh my gosh, if he's giving me a few seconds of his time, like this is good. Like it's going to be a yes finally. And I'll never forget, on the phone, he says to me, we've reviewed your products with our whole buying team and it's unanimous. You're not the right fit for QVC or for our customers. And so instantly I go into like, oh, but I am the right fit. Let me tell you why. And I start like pitching my heart out. Right. And he thanked me for loving QVC, and it was a no. So that was like one of the most memorable nights, because I don't know if you've ever had, bad news in business or something like that. And you wake up the next morning and you're like, oh, fuck, it's like you hoped it was a dream.
Yes.
And it wasn't, right? It was like that for 3 days in a row. I just knew in my gut we're supposed to be on QVC. And it's so, and I knew for years, because I thought, Ed, oh my gosh, I can go live. And unlike all those ads I've seen my whole life that I don't even know if they're real, like, let me show real women, like my mom and my friends and let me show real women. And I believed it. And yet everyone kept telling me no. And finally to get Alan Burke on the phone and hear, literally, I'm not the right fit. When you hear those words, it sucks, right? And by the way, like anyone who's ever been told they're not enough and is tempted to believe it is why I wrote this book. Because there's a lot of people that work really, really hard. And there's a lot of people that still don't quit. They keep going. But like making that decision to believe that you can and that your dream's possible, for me, that's huge. And I just like made the decision to believe it. And and every time I got rejected, whether it was from Alan Burke at QVC or any of the retailers for year after year after year, like I would still approach them as if it was gonna be a yes, and send them sales updates and send them product launches. And they're like, who the F is that? And I just made that decision. So 3 years into this, we finally got this yes on QVC. And what happened with this yes and this one shot is literally one of the single greatest lessons I've ever learned in life and in business. So what this meant was we had one chance to sell our product in this 10-minute window live on QVC. And, for anyone unfamiliar with QVC who might be listening, it's a live television show, and it's broadcast to 100 million homes. There's no script, no teleprompter. And what I learned, Ed, right before I went on, is that you're given 10 minutes in the case of the segment I got, but that's not a guarantee, right? If you go live and let's say a minute or two in, you're not hitting the sales goals, your clock cuts live. So you might be a minute or two in thinking you have 8 minutes left and you're not doing well. Boom, you're down to 1 minute. And you can calculate in your head how much money you just lost and what that means. So we get one shot, we get a yes. And this is like huge, right? Because I knew in my gut, like this is supposed to happen. And I'm going to show real women live. I'm going to shift culture and beauty. Like I knew it. And here's what happened. We got a purchase order and I quickly learned, we were only selling 2 to 3 orders a day on our website, right? Packing them from our living room, just trying to survive, down to no money. Well, for a 10-minute window at QVC, we had to sell over 6,000 units of our concealer to hit their sales goal or not come back, and their consignment in beauty. So what it meant was if we didn't hit those numbers, we didn't sell in that 10-minute window, everything that we didn't sell got shipped back to us and we weren't paid for it. So, and you should never accept a purchase order you can't afford to lose. Yeah. But in this case, it was like, we didn't know how we were going to make it either way. So I thought, okay, this is our one shot. This is going to be life-changing, right? So we hired these third-party consultants that are amazing, and they're experts, and they help a lot of people sell on television and in retail stores. And, we worked with them on, okay, how do we produce our 10-minute window? And the craziest thing happened, right? When we know what we stand for and we think that we're going to stand for it when it comes down to everything on the line, but then someone else tells you that that's not going to work, it's really hard not to question our own values and not to question our own intuition. These experts told me, in order to succeed, here's what you need to do. You need to use this type of model. And it was the perfect flawless skin, the models I'd always seen in TV ads. And I would say to them but that's actually not why I created this brand. And I would tell them, imagine if you're 70 years old sitting at home and you see someone you can't even relate to that doesn't look like you. How do you know the product's going to work for you? Or, I have rosacea, or 70% of people have hyperpigmentation. If they don't see someone that looks like them, and we would get into it and argue and fight, and they wanted me to win. But they were literally giving me the very best advice through the lens of their own experience. And the thing the thing that I wish I knew, so that I know now, but this would have saved me so many nights crying myself to sleep, is sometimes even experts, even the people that are touted visionaries, right? And they really are, and they would never admit this, but they still often can't imagine in their subconscious something succeeding if they haven't seen proof that it has before, right? And that would have made the rejection sting a lot less, because if you're doing anything authentically, anything that hasn't been done before, anything differently, people often can't even imagine it succeeding because of their own, right? And so all of them told me to do it. And they're like, listen, and we would fight. We got into it and they're like, we want you to win. So I was in this moment where I flew out to QVC in Pennsylvania a week early before this one shot on live TV to either, hit their sales goals or basically go out of business. And I went all alone and sat in this rental car in the QVC parking lot because it literally felt so heavy. Like I knew what my gut was telling me to do, but in that moment, I hadn't seen any proof that it was right. No proof in the form of sales anywhere. I mean, we're doing 2 to 3 orders a day for 3 years in. No other retailer saying yes. Everyone telling me you're not this enough or that enough. But those moments in life where we still have that knowing, it's so easy to doubt it. And it's so easy to think we're wrong and to not trust it anymore. And I sat in this rental car praying and crying and literally asking God to take this from me because it felt so heavy. I felt like everything came down to this moment. Honestly, I was tempted to go against my own gut. I was like, okay, well, maybe if I listen to what they're saying, right? Yeah, like maybe I'll do that and I'll do really well for a while, then I'll try it my way. And I just sat in that car and it didn't feel right. And I just kept praying about it. And I would imagine like who my customer was on the other end. And for some reason, I don't know why, I kept imagining this single mom in Nebraska who was like folding laundry and way too busy to remember that she mattered and that she's beautiful. And I just had this moment I'll never forget the rest of my life in that car, that rental car, where I was like, it was just like, it hit me like a ton of bricks where I was like, you know what? I would rather go on live television. If she's going to give me 2 seconds of her precious time and look up at her TV screen, like I would rather her see me up there showing real women who look like her, calling them beautiful and meaning it and have her buy nothing. I'd rather do that than sell a shitload of product and like stand for nothing. So I knew what I had to do, but sometimes when we know what we have to do, it doesn't mean it's easy to do it. And honestly, like I was freaking out. I was so prepared. I had this demonstration on my wrist I was going to do that shows how our product doesn't crease and the top 2 department store ones do. And I get to the live studio, I walk in, we have our 10 minutes, and I go out there on the set live with the host, and I'll never forget, Ed, the clock was 10 minutes, and it's like 9:59, 9:58, like, shit, like I'm on live, like this is happening, right? And I was trying to, and I felt literally sweat all the way dripping down everywhere. I didn't want to talk about that. I was free, and I'm not nervous for television, but everything was on the line. And I was trying to do this demonstration. I had practiced a million times in my bathroom mirror and my hand was like this. And I was trying so hard to do it. And the host was like, thank you, sugar. And she pushed it under. And I remember the moment my bare face, bright red rosacea came up on national television, right? And I remember walking over to these real women and calling them beautiful and meaning it. And there was about like 1 minute left in the cell in the 10-minute segment. And the host was like, the deep shade is almost sold out. The tan shade, we're down to 200. I was like, and then I remember literally right at the 10-minute mark, the sold out sign came up diagonal, like across the screen, and tears like start streaming down my face. And I remember my husband, Paulo, he came rushing through the double doors. And I'm like sobbing and I'm like, real women have spoken. And he's like, we're not going bankrupt. And I was like, ah! And that one airing turned into 5 that year, 101 the next year. And then we did 250 live shows a year. So I've done over 1,000 live shows myself on QVC, and we grew the largest beauty brand in QVC's history. And it is right now at this moment, to this day. And I only share that because it was 3 years, right, of them saying no, and you're not the right fit. And no one can tell you you're not the right fit. You know what I mean? And sometimes I feel like we hear those, every one of us has heard that in some form or another, that you're not the right fit or you're not enough. And I feel like those aren't the moments where you give up. Those are the moments like you get back up, and with God and grace and grit, like you keep hustling and you keep going and you keep following your knowing. And one more little thing to share with you, just on the topic of full circle moments. Alan Burke, who's the head like legend, after we launched on QVC, right? He's the one that said no, and I was crying myself to sleep 3 nights in a row. And he told me I'm not the right fit for QVC, all that kind of stuff. After we launched on QVC, I ended up getting to know him really well. And he became not only a dear friend, but literally one of my greatest mentors in my entire career. He is right now, to this day, one of my greatest mentors. And, he's the one that built that billion-dollar beauty, multi-billion-dollar empire at QVC for beauty. When he retired from QVC, we hired him in a paid position on our advisory board. So Ed, the guy that rejected me, was now working for me. Like, no one can tell you you're not the right fit, right? And so, anyways,
you're amazing. You guys, listen to me on this. I went and I got to say that I love you. It's one of the great stories of all time, told by the person still living it. Why do you need to get the book? I'm not selling the book, guys. I'm just telling you. Why do you want to get the book? Why do you want to follow Jamie? Because she really did it. Do you know how rare it is in the business, entrepreneur, self-help space that it's not someone theorizing about things they think would probably work, but they've never applied? She did this. So what's in this book is gold. You don't have a lot of people on earth who have done what she's done. And then even fewer are like, let me teach you how I did it and how I think. It's very rare. And it's why today's such a gift to be doing the show with you. I have to just tell you, it's interesting because we've met a couple times in green rooms or backstage and different things. And just so you know, Jamie is so kind and has so much humility. And you can't find anyone anywhere who has a bad word to say about her. She's just a beautiful spirit. And so I knew the story a little bit. And then I knew you were going to be on the show. So I was prepping. I already know the work that went in, and I know the result, but I went and watched the clip when you showed your rosacea, right? Yeah. And I found myself, even though I know what happens, I was like, got butterflies in my stomach for you now, even though it's years later. I'm kind of saying quiet prayers for you. And I already know that you won, but it's such a poignant moment to go through all of that rejection. And I think you're giving so many people hope that you stuck to your guns about your beliefs as well.
I want to go back in time, because, I've heard you on the stages that you speak around the world talk about how you started as a waitress in Denny's, and then from waitressing at Denny's pursued a dream that you had of being on television. And as a fellow former waitress, I would love to start there.
Yeah, waitress at Denny's, full uniform, name tag to prove it.
Oh, I forgot they had uniforms.
Full uniform.
What was your favorite thing on the menu?
Oh gosh, I love the pancakes. You know what? Just like simple. It's so funny how our steps are ordered, I think, in life. And so often, I remember being a waitress at Denny's. I remember feeling, and maybe someone listening to us can relate to this right now. You have this feeling inside of you like, there's something more I'm supposed to do, but you don't know what it is yet. And you doubt it might be possible. And I remember being waitress at Denny's and just feeling like I have these big dreams, but not quite knowing, like, how do I believe I'm worthy of them yet? And it was this big season in my life. At the same time, Mel, the kitchen at the Denny's I worked at was a disaster. Like, they would take an hour to get pancakes out. So I learned to talk to people so that they wouldn't leave. They often did leave, or they'd throw like a dime and a penny on the table and leave.
As your tip, as if it's your fault.
Yeah,
that the
exactly.
Food were.
But it's so funny how, years later when I ended up launching my own business, I'm like, oh, I've got to get the operations right or nothing else matters. It's just those little things we learn along the way. But yeah, after that, I thought my whole life I would have a talk show. I watched Oprah in my living room growing up, so I thought for sure I would share other people's stories with the world. So I went into, did all the jobs, saved up all my money to pay for school, and push grocery carts in the grocery parking lot, sliced meat in the deli. all those fun jobs, and then found myself in what I thought was my dream job, working in TV news, and I thought, "This is it," right? And what I didn't realize was I was about to enter this huge season of setback in my life,
Mm.
of self-doubt. I have a skin condition called rosacea, and for me, it started getting really red, really bumpy, and I would be anchoring the news live, thinking like, "Okay, this is it," and I started hearing in my earpiece, from my producer, "There's something on your face. There's something on your face. You
Oh
need
my
to wipe it
God.
off. You need to," and I was live on television, right? And I would glance down during the commercial break and I saw, oh, the makeup is breaking up on my face and these big red bumps are coming through. And it started this season that felt like setback. But so often in life, the seasons that feel like setbacks are actually setups for what we're called to do.
Okay, stop right there. Did you hear that? The seasons of your life that are setbacks are often setups for what you're called to do. I want to just make sure everybody heard that. And I want to take a highlighter and also highlight something that you said about being a waitress at Denny's. And it's this: you said our steps are ordered.
Mhm.
So, can you explain what that means, particularly to somebody who's listening
Yeah.
who may feel like, I know I'm meant for something greater.
Yes.
Why the hell am I at this step? And this does not feel like it is like on the path of where I'm supposed to go. So,
Mm,
what do you mean by the fact that our steps are ordered?
yeah. I believe, everything in life
Yep.
is happening for us, even when it doesn't make sense.
Ugh. Can
Um,
we just, what do you mean happening for us?
I
So, to
think
somebody that's like really in it, Jamie,
yes, yes.
what does that mean?
Let me frame it around our topic of purpose, right?
Okay.
So often people feel empty because they feel like, oh, my purpose needs to be some job. It needs to be my job, or it needs to be this grand thing I haven't figured out yet. But for those of us that have accomplished a goal we always dreamed of, we get to it and we're like, "Oh, this isn't it," right? It's never, in my opinion, purpose is never this big goal necessarily. Purpose is so often when we're able to serve the person we once were or serve in a way for something we've gone through. And here's what I mean. I think our purpose can be like, "Oh, wow, I went through a really freaking hard season in my
Mm,
life, and I now am actually realizing I'm born to be a generational cycle breaker in my family."
mm, mm-hmm.
That is an incredible purpose, right? Purpose can be like, oh, I've been having a hard season for a long time. And when I actually just take a minute and say hi to someone else who's lonely, maybe it's like in the coffee line at Starbucks, maybe it's the neighbor down the street, whatever it is, you feel in your gut a sense of fulfillment, like a sense of alignment when you're doing something in your purpose.
Mm.
And I think that the big mistake people make is they think it's this end goal, right? A lot of times when people hear my story and they hear the, oh, Denny's waitress builds $1 billion company, they think my purpose was to be some big entrepreneur.
It wasn't?
It wasn't.
What was it?
In the journey of how I did it,
Yeah.
I took this massive risk, right? Taking my makeup off on national television when I was told not to, and being brave enough to be seen and
Mm.
helping other women realize that they're worthy and enough exactly as they are, seeing them as who they are. To me, that is my purpose. And in doing that, it just a byproduct of that with It Cosmetics is we built a company with millions and millions and millions and millions of customers. And what's wild is 5% of our customers actually have skin issues, like I do. 95% don't. It's just that they felt seen and connected with something that spoke to their soul, right? For me, being willing to say, here I am exactly as I am, no makeup, and, all my skin issues. I think people connected with that feeling of, oh, I'm enough exactly as I am.
You know what else I think is a really important part of your story? It is waitressing.
Yeah,
It's pushing carts in a supermarket.
yeah,
It's working in the back house of a restaurant. That's
yes,
my story too. Helping my best friend on her paper route, bussing tables. And I think when you work in retail or you work in a service job,
yeah,
and you feel at times invisible, you start to realize how important it is to treat everybody with respect and kindness, that
Yes.
there is no work that is beneath you. And when you can bring that level of service to the job that you have right now, even if you hate it, even if people treat you like garbage, even if the back of the house is not getting those pancakes out on time and
Yes.
people are angry, if you can bring a sense of grace and service and just humility to those roles, I think it changes how you show up when things start working out, because you don't ever forget what it's like to be treated like shit
Yes.
because somebody was mad that their pancakes weren't out on time.
Yes. Yes. And also, you and I have had this experience where we've truly gotten to see and be almost every type of person in every
Yeah.
type of environment. And so now it's like, whether it's me building a business or you building one of the top shows in the world, one of the top shows in the world, I feel part of that was like, oh, we understand who's listening and watching you right
Yes.
now. I
Yes.
understand who real people are who built, who bought my products. And
Yeah.
and so when you mention steps are ordered, it's like, no matter where you are in your life right now, what you're going through, I believe every piece of it, whether it's, oh, someone just, cut me off in a parking lot and screamed at me, or, oh, whatever it might be you're going through, all of those things are happening for you, I believe,
I love
so
that.
that you're amassing this toolbox of understanding and getting strong enough and equipped enough for the purpose you step into.
Amazing. So, Professor of Purpose, Jamie Kern Lima, right there. That's your takeaway number one. The steps are ordered. Believe in that.
Mm,
And this moment is helping you, it's giving you something. So, that is one major tool that you used along the way. Let's go back to that moment, because I think you were 28 years old, right?
mhm.
When you're sitting on television in Seattle.
Yeah.
You are a local news anchor, you're living the dream, you're on your way, and you are now starting to have this nightmare happen
Yes.
where your rosacea is breaking through on camera in front of everybody
Yeah.
the makeup that they put on you.
Yes.
And you've got people in your ear telling you there's something wrong with your face.
Yes.
And you're realizing, holy cow, the makeup that they've put on my face cannot cover the rosacea and the skin issues that I have. So,
Yeah.
what do you do in that moment?
Well, the first thing I did was start freaking out, right? And I like literally I started entering this season of self-doubt where I would be live on the air, anchoring the news, thinking thoughts in my head like, "Oh, am I going to get fired? Are viewers changing the channel right now? Like, am I costing the company ratings?" Right? So it was this
Could you
big.
feel those moments when you could feel like the makeup not kind of like disappearing? Like, there were moments when I used to be a commentator for CNN, I was premenopausal, where I could feel the hot flash coming.
Yeah. I didn't feel it until they said it in my ear and in my
Oh,
earpiece. And then what would start to happen was I would get so nervous and stressed out because I kept trying to cover it during commercial breaks. I could feel my heartbeat in my ears.
oh,
So what I remember is like anchoring the news live, and sometimes you have to be happy, tell this happy story, or you're serious telling. And I just remember my heart beating in my ears, hoping people weren't changing the channel.
oh
And
my
and
God.
it started this thing where I would spend what, it's funny. I was anchoring the news, and people think when you're doing that, you must have all this money, but you really don't get paid much at all. And I
No.
took my little paycheck that I had and started spending it on department store makeup, professional artistry makeup, drugstore makeup. I couldn't find anything that worked. And I had this idea one day, like, oh, if I can't find anything that works for me, there's probably a whole lot of other people out there that feel like makeup doesn't work for them. And it was sort of this idea where I was like, if I could
Mm.
figure out how to make something that worked for me, it helped a whole lot of people. And that was my knowing, or this gut feeling. But then my head, Mel, was like, oh, but you got no money, you got no connections, no one in the beauty industry, you're unqualified. So I sat in this place, right? And we're talking about purpose. I had this gut feeling like I was supposed to go for this thing, but then my head was like, oh, but here's all the reasons why you're not qualified to do it. Plus, you're in your dream job, right? And I sat between those two. And it wasn't until I had this big, big aha moment of why I needed to do it that pushed me over the edge.
Okay, so what is the aha moment?
Yeah, so I realized one day, I'm like, this makes no sense. There are thousands of makeup companies out there. How does nothing work for me, right? Then I had this moment where I realized I've never seen a model with bright red bumpy skin saying, selling makeup. Like you always see these photoshopped, airbrushed
Yeah.
models. And I realized, Mel, like, wow, my whole life I've actually loved those beauty commercials and I love seeing the magazines and I always aspired to look like them, but deep down inside, they always made me feel like I wasn't enough.
Mm.
And I had this moment. I was literally on the news set when this happened, where I was like, wait a minute. What if it's not just about launching a makeup product? Like what if I could actually figure out how to do it, which I had no idea how, and I had no money. It was like, what if I could actually launch a product that works for me? And what if I actually put real people as models, like every age, shape, size, skin tone, skin challenge? What if I use them as models, call them beautiful, and mean it for every little kid out there who's about to start doubting themselves and every grown woman who still does, and that deep source of pain from how I was feeling not enough and what could I do about it? That, in my opinion, is one of the strongest ways to find your purpose. It's what has just destroyed you or hurt you that you've maybe made it through,
Yeah.
and how can you now use that making it through to help someone who's going through it?
Okay. That's like a mic drop moment from our professor of purpose, Jamie Kern Lima. So again, I like to unpack these things to make
Yeah.
sure this is a, I always say this is not just a listening podcast, it's a doing podcast. And I want to make sure nobody's left behind.
Yes.
And there was billions of dollars worth of wisdom that you just dropped. And so I want to try to unpack it for anybody that is listening to this and you have this sense that you're made for more.
Yes.
So one of the things that I heard is look in your life and see what problems or frustrations or things that you're struggling with that feel like a setback. And Jamie gave you the example of the rosacea on her skin and her inability to find something that actually could help her solve this issue of being able to cover it up so that she could do her dream job. And that setback is a setup for something new. And then get out of your own sort of selfish or self-loathing or the self-excuses and the self-pity and remind yourself that there are 8 billion people on this planet now. There are other people that are dealing with this.
Yeah.
And that if you can figure out how to put your energy into making this better for yourself, and you bring other people into the fold with you, you now have something that's worth working on because it helps you and it's going to help other people.
I am obsessed with an idea that you have in the book about how all the hard things are going to, like we started with that quote, they're either going to break you or they're going to make you. And really that's up to you. And the stories you share in the book are really, they draw you in with they're both entertaining because they're well written and well told. They're gut wrenching at times because I can imagine what it would be like to go through that. But they act ultimately as a yellow brick road in a way that I found very enticing in your book. And one of the bricks on the yellow brick road was that your father was an alcoholic. And you said something in the book that I was really impacted by, given my wife, Lisa, and what she's like. You said, my dad loved me, and he was a kind and gentle man who quietly struggled with alcoholism. And the way that you described that was very generous. And you said, but there were times you would sit and stare at the clock, and because you had to wait for him to wake up, which your mom would be off working. And so sometimes it could be hours of waiting for him to wake up, and he would wake up, or you would get to the time where you were allowed to wake him up, and then he would ask you for an hour or two. And then I just imagine you sitting there watching the clock flip until he finally gets up and you guys can hang out. And in that you said, my dad inadvertently taught me that women are superheroes that have to be stronger than men, because that's what my mom was, a superhero who's essentially doing everything by herself. And I was like, I know that it is, Jamie, I don't wish difficulties on anybody, But man, when they're looked at from the right lens, they make pretty extraordinary people. So that's a story you tell early in the book. The yellow brick road then leads to a photo of you and 7 of your friends, so you and 6 other people. And you break down every one of you guys has overcome. It's almost absurd. The fact that out of 7, 2 of you were adopted. There's breast cancer. There's learning difficulty. I mean, it was crazy. And yet each and every one of them is absurdly successful. How do people harness difficulties like that to become something powerful instead of, leaning into the victim side, which anybody would understand, people pulling the victim card from that? But how do you pull something else?
The very first and most important thing on how is you have to want to. And I think that every human being can easily go into victim mentality on a lot of things that have happened in all of our lives, right? And it's a mentality that actually can, I think, reward you in a lot of ways, and also become a justification too for staying inside your comfort zone when it comes to things like going after your dreams. And it makes sense for a lot of people, right? And again, I think there's a time. I mean, I'm not going to speak to people that, I'm not going to speak to a lot of the really hard things that require a lifetime of work to figure out. What I will say is therapy is the best thing I've ever done in really understanding this. And I actually talk about that.
Does it allow you to recontextualize? Is that the idea?
Yeah, and to understand it at a deep level. And by the way, your show, like this conversation, to me, these are the things that are so important that we invest in ourselves and do, right? Because I don't want to stay in a place where it could be easy to stay at in my life. I think that the quote you started out with, when these tough times happen, do you warrior up or do you victim up? Do you level up or do you give up, right? The up is up to you. And I do believe why I share the story of my 7 closest friends is because I think this is important. I think a lot of people out there are like me and maybe have loving family, loving friends. But if you were to turn the volume up on all of them and they were to be your only inner circle, it'd be really easy for self-doubt to take over. It'd be really easy to dim your own light. And I talk about my journey of how I chose my circle around me. And it's never based on a commonality of life experience. It's my closest friends. And I think this is important for everyone listening, because a lot of people are like, oh, I don't have an inner circle that empowers me. How do I find one? I would say impact theory and impact your university. That alone can be a part of your inner circle. That's a voice and conversations and information that you want to turn the volume up on. And I talk about this because I think this is universal for everyone and so important to do this. A lot of times people build their circle of friends based on who they went to school with or things they have in common and all the stuff, right? I mean, it's a group of people from work because you're around them all the time, whatever it is. And I think that that's not always the right thing. I think who your circle is so important. And for me, I go deep on this in the book and talk about each one of their stories because I want to drive the point home that who you do surround yourself with, and when you judge them by their heart and how they pour into you and champion you and don't tell you this crap you just because you want to hear it, they tell you the real truth, which is so important. They don't get jealous when you're flying high. They want you to fly higher. I talk about this commonality of traits, and yet my closest group of friends have literally almost nothing in common. Their backgrounds are so different. They have different faiths and no faith. They one of them was homeless all growing up, then lived in the projects, and then figured out how to build her own circle and become an entrepreneur. And she figured out how to turn down the volume of negativity and lack of dreaming of all the people around her, for the most part, that she was raised in. And how did she turn that volume up on her own, inner light? And I share this common thread really just to inspire a mindset shift sometimes of, oh, you know what? My circle of friends, each person listening right now, my circle of friends, they don't need to think like I do or pray like I do or love like I do or anything else. But like, if I surround myself with people that are truly telling the truth, loving me authentically, and uplifting and dreaming big with me, and calling me out on the BS when I start to like talk myself out of my own truth, right? Which we all do. It's a lifelong journey. Talk about the power of finding people like that and surrounding yourself with them. And I think they can be people in real life. And I also think that they can be people that you let pour into you who maybe you've never even met, like you, like your show for people. You know what I mean? I think that that's really powerful. Who we let speak into our lives and who we turn the volume down on, but still love anyway, is so important. Because one of our biggest mistakes is turning the volume up on the people just because we love them and they're our family. And then all of a sudden, that's all the noise we hear, and it impacts our whole life.
Talk to me about the ability to turn the volume up and down. That was one of the things I found really extraordinary in your book. Like, if I were going to do like a spoof of your book, it would go something like this. Somebody was really fucking mean. I cried like a motherfucker. And then I walked in the next room like a warrior. Like, it's that over and over and over. I love that. Like, every time. Well, I mean, you actually have a whole chapter in the book about swinging your big balls, which we should definitely talk about. But first, give me the idea. How do you turn the volume down? When you said that earlier about the guy who said, look, people aren't going to buy makeup from somebody that looks like you. How do we grab the volume knob on something that gnarly?
Yeah. I mean, it is such a disciplined practice. It's such a skill. It's hard. I mean, just yesterday, I had someone do something that I thought was like a super close friend, and I was just blindsided, and I felt so betrayed. And listen, we all go through these things, and they're hard. And one of my friends many years ago, Bob Goff is his name, he taught me this, and it just stuck. I just feel like it was so important to talk about it because this tool that Bob had taught me, where he talked about your own microphone and then the volume dial. And he basically... I imagine, right? Because, that I have this microphone. Everyone listening right now, imagine you have your own microphone, and you have to get into really good practice of like who you hand your microphone to and let speak into it. And what I had to learn, one example of this is, my dad, who was an alcoholic, who was a good man with a really bad addiction, and loved me the best way he knew how with his own capacity. And I remember I was, working, I was always super ambitious. I wanted to get a car and go travel, all the things. So I had 4 jobs in high school. And, I was working, one of my jobs, I was working in a health club, and I started as a receptionist. And then they said, well, if you sell memberships, you'll make commission on those too. And I started selling a lot of memberships, and I was like, this is great. And so after high school, I didn't go to school right away. I moved out, got my own apartment. I was making like $55,000 a year, which was more than my dad at his job he'd been at. And I never forget when I made this decision I was going to go to school. I was like, okay, because I just wanted to get out, meet other people, and like figure stuff out. And I remember when I told him I'm going to quit my job and I'm going to go to school, and he was mortified. He's like, what are you doing? Like, do you know how much money you're making right now? I mean, he was so upset and so worried about me that I was making a huge mistake. And so I remember even in that moment, we all have experiences like that in our lives with our family, right? They're seeing things through their own lens of experience. But whether it's a story like that, or it's just a friend that you love hanging out with and you go to the gym with only, but anytime you share a hope and dream, all of a sudden you feel them lower your vibration. Like you feel it, right? Because they don't get it, or they don't like it, or whatever it is. Bob Goff taught me this, that basically you learn, oh, I'm going to take back my microphone from them on those topics, right? I'm going to talk to them about my workout today, or in my dad's case, what's happening on the news or whatever. But I started learning with my own big hopes and dreams. I don't give other people my microphone who are then just going to literally lower my vibration because of their own lens of limitation. And it's the skill you develop. And when you imagine holding your own microphone, listen, we all, if you are blessed to have a family or friends that you love, it's not like, you want to just X them out of your life because they don't understand your hopes and dreams. But learning to just not share them all with them, hold your own microphone, talk to them about other things, like what's on The Bachelor, or like what's going on with whatever, right? And love them, but put those boundaries in place. And then the other thing is the volume dial, and that's big. And, people have said things to us that have hurt us, probably universally. There's probably not a single person out there that hasn't had someone say something to them that hurts them deeply. And it is human nature to relive it over and over and over and over in our own head, to the point where we carve a groove and it's like it starts to stick and take root. And I think it is so important mentally for me. Like every time that dude who said no one will buy makeup from you, and there's so many other rejections that I talk about in the book. When I went to Sephora and felt like I didn't belong and I didn't fit in and all those things, a lot of times the most hurtful words we hear are the ones we say to ourselves and the ones we make up, and telling ourselves we're not enough and all that kind of stuff. And I have to be mindful and intentional and literally imagine myself when those thoughts come up, stopping them, turning down the volume, and then turning up the volume on something else until I believe it.
How has serving people helped you? It's not in any of the things we were going to talk about, but, probably more than anybody and certainly in your case, more than anybody I know, like we're really doing whatever this is we're doing.
Yeah.
For service for you and I. Neither one of us financially have a need to do it. I gave away all the proceeds from my book. You're doing the same thing.
Yeah.
How has service to other people changed your life or created more bliss in your own life? I just want to know that, because for me, I feel the most worthy oftentimes in my life when I'm in the service of somebody else.
Yes.
I actually feel worthy. I don't always feel worthy that I'm capable of doing it. But when I'm in the effort and attempt to serve somebody, I feel more connected with my own worth when I'm serving another person.
Yeah. So in the book Worthy, there's a whole chapter on fulfillment, right? And first of all, self-worth is the most critical piece, because you can do everything right. You can have self-confidence, you can be growing, you can be contributing and serving, but if you don't have self-worth, you're never going to feel truly fulfilled. So you have to have self-worth, which of course the book's packed with how do you build that, right? But then you also need self-confidence, and you also need growth. You need to be growing, stretching, like in some area of your life. And it could be simple things like growing in your faith or growing in your golf game, right? It doesn't matter what it is. You have to be growing to feel fulfilled, but you also have to be contributing, meaning doing something bigger than yourself. And a lot of people miss that. They think, if I just make enough money, if I just have enough people love me on social media, if I just whatever it might be, if you are not contributing, you'll never feel that deep source of purpose and fulfillment. And two big ways on how do I contribute? I have nothing to offer. So many people think that, right? And you and I have a friend, Rory, that always talks about how we're best positioned to serve the person we once were. And another way to put that is, so often the pain we've gone through, the setbacks, the things that sucked, right? It's like when we're able to then use those and help other people make it through the things we've gotten through. It brings a deep sense of purpose and also understanding of the cadence of the calling of our life and everything we've gone through.
Gosh.
But also there's simple ways to give back. I mean, literally just smiling at a neighbor. I mean, it is that simple. There are people, so many people, I'm going to cry if I think about this and talk about this, but so many of us, if you make eye contact, and Ed, you're one of the best people I've ever met at this. I feel like it's why we're such good friends, because we both see this in other people. You're one of the best people I've ever met at seeing other people, like truly seeing other people.
Let's just be real. We both know you're the best at that.
You're amazing at it. anyone who wants to go, how do I serve? You know how you serve? Walk into the coffee shop or wherever you're at and see someone.
Yeah.
Actually see somebody and just say hi, or how are you? Or, you know, I almost guarantee you I'm going to cry. I almost guarantee you for so many people, if you walk into anywhere, any room you're in today in your life and you actually just see somebody, you're probably going to be the only person that day that sees them.
You're so brilliant. You're so brilliant. So where I started practicing this was in places like coffee shops because I didn't feel worthy to do it in like business environments. So I actually practiced it like in grocery stores and coffee shops, and I recommend everybody do it. And so let's just say you went to order your coffee and the barista's there.
Yeah.
Hey, what can I get you? Welcome. And you just take a second and there's a pause. I do this now as who I am, but at first I had to practice. And so I would let them pause and I'd go, hey, how are you? And I'll just take a second. How are you today? And you look at them and you hold the glance and actually wait for them to answer you. They feel that energy. And the first few times I did it, it was awkward. And then I went, wow, I get the added bonus to my coffee today. I connected with this human being.
Yes.
And as I'm walking out, I felt better. I know they felt better, but I felt better.
Yep.
What I didn't know until I read your book is I actually felt a little bit more worthy.
Yep.
And then when I went into business meetings, I had a little bit more of the worthy bucket filled up.
Yes.
Because I did exactly in the exact environment. You go to a cashier at a grocery store. How are you today? And you actually listen and say it a little slower. Hey, how are you? That's not the same thing as how are you?
Yeah.
And they feel you actually want to know and you care.
Yes.
Slowing your life down like that. You're like, what's that got to do with business? I don't know. Best person I know at doing that is you. You said I'm the best person you know at doing that is me. And we're two of the richest people in this entire space. So there's some correlative property to it to business as well, right? There's got to be.
And two things happen. You see that other person. So now all of a sudden you're in service to something bigger than yourself. But when you see that other person and they realize it, they then see you.
Yes.
The moment they realize you saw them is the moment they see you. When you actually see someone else and in that moment they realize it and then they see you, you actually feel seen. And here's something that is so powerful and profound and huge when we realize we do this in our lives. Is so many of us, and I'm talking about no matter where you're at in your career or your goals or your ambitions or the version of success in your life that the world celebrates, right? Whether it's having the kids and the whatever it is, no matter where you're at in that, we are so tempted always to actually still live our lives hiding in plain sight. Never actually showing who we truly are, never actually allowing our true self to be seen, right? Just showing up with the parts of us that the world celebrates. And we start creating barriers of disconnection in our lives. But more than that, right? And we wonder why we're not fulfilled in relationships. But more than that is we create a barrier of disconnection with ourselves. We don't actually see ourselves. And just to give this analogy, for everyone listening, right? For you, for me, for everyone watching us, is maybe you remember the moment as a little kid in class, and think back to when you were a little kid, maybe 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, the very first moment when you knew the answer, but you decided for the first time ever not to raise your hand because you thought, well, what if I'm wrong? What if I get made fun of? What if I no longer belong after I do that? And that is for so many people, the moment that self-doubt starts to set in, the moment we become aware of these things, the moment we start to shrink our self-worth and our self-confidence. And so that moment we start hiding in plain sight. And then what does that look like today as an adult? For a lot of people, it looks like, oh, you're on a Zoom meeting with your team and you have an idea, but you don't raise your hand. You don't share it, just in case it sucks, right? It looks like, oh, you're the boss and maybe you're crushing it and you're hitting numbers every single quarter, but you actually have some novel ideas to innovate and move your company or your industry forward, but you're not going to do them because you're scared to take a risk, right? Because you're crushing it now. That is hiding in plain sight. It looks like maybe you're the extrovert that walks into the room and can entertain everyone else, but no one actually knows what you're really dealing with.
Yes.
Right? You're hiding in plain sight.
That's the most profound thing. You said that the other day. I do feel like people hide in plain sight.
Yep.
By the way, ask yourself, am I doing that?
Yeah.
Am I playing small? Am I shrinking? Do I not raise the proverbial hand in so many moments in my life when I could step forward and take my power?
And to add to that too, Ed, is when you ask yourself this, right? What are the ways you're hiding in plain sight in your life? And it might be in work. It might be in your romantic relationship. It might be in your friendships. Do you know how many people feel like they've got to play a part to fit into a friend group? But then they feel lonely because those friends actually don't know them for who they truly are. There's so many ways we're hiding in plain sight so often in our lives. And the most important thing you can do is not just identify it. And I take you through so many exercises on how to do this in Worthy, in the book coming out, which you can pre-order now and get a special live Zoom with Ed and me if you do it.
Worthybook.com/Ed. Okay.
That's right. And it's going to go away. So it's just, so do it now. But I go deep in this because the most important thing is not just to identify in your life all the ways you're hiding in plain sight, all the ways that self-doubt is impacting your life, but then to identify what does hiding in plain sight already cost you in your life? Yeah. What does it cost you in your goals and dreams? What does it cost you in the depth of connection you have in your relationships and in your friendships, right? What does it cost you? Mm-hmm. And then when you really go through the work of going, what will it cost you 5-10 years from now if you don't change? And you start really opening your eyes. We're always wired as human beings to avoid pain. And when you really do the work here and you understand what it's going to cost you, what it has cost you, what it will cost you, that pain will be greater than the pain of, you know what? I might get rejected, I might lose some friends, I might be embarrassed, people might not get me, but I'm not going to hide anymore. Yeah. I'm going to show up and I'm going to be seen. Like not just the parts of me I think I need to be, but like the true parts of me. I am so blessed to have friends like you who sharpen me all the time. That is so, so, so important. And also, you don't need to hold out for a hero in order to go after your dreams. You don't need it. It's an excuse. It's a lie. It is an indication of unworthiness to believe that we need somebody else before we're enough. Yeah. Or once that, person shows up and I'm married, then I'll be enough. Yeah. Once I have kids in my life, then I'll be enough. Once I get that dream mentor, then my business will take off. Yeah. All of it is a lie. It's a lie that leads to self-doubt. Yeah. And it's why I wrote this book, because it's packed with truths that wake up worthiness. Yep. Because when you don't soar to the level of your hopes and dreams in life, you always will plateau at the level of your self-worth. Yes. And when you get that right, it changes everything. And by the way, I'm getting so fired up, not to go into the personal growth world or anything, but so what I realized is so much of the work you hear thought leaders doing around overcoming limiting beliefs, you might have a limiting belief that you'll never make a lot of money, or you're too young or too old, or whatever it might be. You can do all the work of overcoming those limiting beliefs. But if you do not do the work on overcoming the limiting beliefs about worthiness, it does not matter, because you can accomplish everything again and go, okay, I believe I'm smart enough now. I believe all the things. Those are building your self-confidence. Yeah. If you don't do that innate work of building your worthiness, then you'll sabotage all the stuff that you bring into your life.
Who's your biggest critic? And you can guess who they said. I'm assuming it was themselves. It was them. It was, them sitting there and being like, I am my biggest critic. And you just said you got 1 million no's. Is this a... I
love your mug. It's my book.
Listen. Is this a woman thing? Is this a man thing? Is this a learned thing? You obviously went through it.
But somehow going through with all those no's, which a lot of these women are like, if I heard that many no's, I would just quit. How the heck do you deal with all those no's and then continue to believe in it?
Yeah. First of all, thank you for asking that question, because I think when we share these no's and we share this rejection, again, back to what you guys do every single day, helps everyone feel less alone. So thank you for even asking that. I think this is huge, because when you Google my story, you don't see that. You just see a fairy tale Cinderella story. And I realized from getting so many DMs on Instagram that, women think oh, did you just have connections, or did you just get lucky, or did you, and I'm like, no. And a big part of the journey was handling the no's and how. So, so thank you for asking that. Yeah, just to use, I guess, one quick story that's an example of this, that maybe, because I think everybody listening right now probably has rejection in some form. And then how do you handle your own inner critic from like not taking over, right? I think when we listen to our own inner critic, and when we turn the volume up on that instead of learning how to turn it down, I think we end up literally talking ourselves out of our own truth and our own calling and our own purpose in this life. And so I think one of our greatest journeys, literally every human being, and especially every woman, and doubly now that I'm a mom, because I've been CEO of a $1 billion company and I've been a mom. Being a mom is harder. Hands down.
Listen to that, ladies. Listen to that. $1 billion company. Mom is harder.
Mom is harder. And I also noticed since being a mom too, which I love that you guys talk about this a lot, but my inner critic has gotten louder, and you know, comparison, all those things that every human being deals with, I think gets doubled down on us when we become a mom. And so I think learning how, and you know, I talk about this a lot in Believe It, this idea of how do you turn down the volume? Like I imagine, Kat and Nat, I imagine this imaginary volume dial, literally in my own head. When I hear my inner critic come out that says, Jamie, you're not qualified, or you're not enough, or you're all these things, I have to literally imagine myself turning, or by the way, sometimes it's our partner. Sometimes it's our friends and family who love us. Sometimes it's our kiddos. Sometimes it's whoever. They mean well, but they say something like, are you sure you should quit your job and go after that? Or what do you know about doing that? Or, you know, all the things, right? And they mean well, but I've learned to like literally imagine this volume dial, and I turn down the volume on that. And I have to, and this is a daily thing, by the way, still to this day, I have to like intentionally imagine myself turning up the volume on other words that replace those words that I know are true, even when they're hard to believe. Like, oh, you might have no experience in beauty, Jamie, but you're gonna figure this out. Like you've always figured it out, or you're gonna work hard, or you're not gonna let, you know, no stop you, all those things, right? And I try to just turn up the volume on those things. And I think every single person in our daily lives needs to do this, because what I think happens is we end up, right? So when I went on this 3-year journey of hearing no's, the first 3 years of my company, and we got down to under $1,000 in our bank account, which was personal and company combined. And I was like, I kept feeling in my intuition like this, I was supposed to be doing this. Like I was supposed to be creating this makeup company that solved my own skin problems and also helped to shift culture around the kind of images we see for beauty. And I just had this big dream, and it kept feeling right. But sometimes like we start to second guess our own gut when there's no proof around us that we're right. And so for 3 years, it was like all the no's, all the beauty experts like Sephora and all the department stores and QVC, they all said, no, you're not the right fit. We don't want to bet on you. We don't think you'll make us money, right? All those things. And when you have experts telling you they don't think you're going to make it, and then you have, you know, there's no proof around you that you're going to make it, and then you have friends and family worried about you. At the end of the day, learning how to turn down the volume on all that, including your own self-doubt, and like hearing your own gut. For me, I've done a million things wrong in my journey. And I share all those too in the book, but like one of the things I did right was I learned to hear my own gut, and I made the decision to trust myself when it said, keep going, I'm supposed to be doing this. And that changed everything.
You know, I feel like a lot of people, they fail, or they try and they fail. And then they're like, well, I don't have it in me to do more. They just feel so crushed by failing. And, you know, Kat and I, sometimes we joke because we were never, super successful like in school or in any of the traditional things where other people were shining. So we're like, every time something doesn't work out for us, we're almost like we have great practice in failing. We're like, if something really turns out well, we're like, well, this is new. This is very exciting. But when you say like you learn how to like trust your gut, I think that like that inner, it feels like it can be such a small thing inside you, and people want to tune into that and they want to hear it. It's like in their mind, they know what they have is a great idea, but they need to like, they don't know how to do it.
Is there a
they can
feeling?
hear their gut.
Is there a feeling in your, what's the
How
gut?
did you
Yeah.
find it?
Yeah. Oh gosh. Okay. I'm so excited to share a thought with you really fast. I have a question for you, if it's okay to ask. Do you guys think that part of like what you do now and why you're so successful everywhere, which I'll just say that about you because it's true. Do you feel like you're not afraid to fail, and that's a big part of it? And that's a big part of it.
You know, I think it's sort of our detriment too, because we also are shocked when we're successful. And you know, I think that when you learn, you know, I dropped out of high school, when you learn to not be afraid or ashamed of what or who you were, you let go of all these expectations. Like so many people are afraid to say, I can't afford it. You know, I just can't afford it. Like, you know, I don't have the money. Like I can't go out for dinner because I have no money in my bank account. Like all these secrets that we've been taught to keep or not share. You know, I'm having a hard time with my husband, right? I'm not, but like, you know, all these things where
spread rumors.
No, like it's like you have to constantly front yourself. And I think that we're gifted at our gift is being okay with our flaws.
But I also think that like, although they were traditional failures, I think what it sort of showed us is that we don't have to follow the path where everybody else is successful. Like I remember when I wasn't going to be able to afford to go to university, which is, you guys call it college, but not a community college, university. I couldn't afford unless I took out loans. And I also didn't have the marks to get in. And I remember someone saying to me, like, you're never going to get a job if you don't go to university. And I was like, I remember thinking to myself, I don't necessarily think that's true. I think I can be successful and not have to go spend all that money for the 4 years and maybe study something that may or may not apply to a job or something I want to do in the future. And so like the failures that look like failures to other people were sometimes just like if they were successes in other ways, you know?
Totally. And one thing you just said too that's so powerful is that when that person told you that, you already knew that they were wrong. You had that feeling. Like you knew, right? So you trusted yourself in that, which I think is huge. And one thing before I forget, oh my gosh, then I want to share something. This is so big, what you just said about failing, I think too, and just sharing too, that like for all of us, right? Because I'm part of your community too, and appreciate you, everything, how you guys show up in the world so much. But for me and everyone else part of your community right now, like listening to this, I think this is huge because you watching your success and your impact and all the things in real time, and then hearing that you're not afraid to fail, right? I think this is so big because when you look at like all the research, it shows even women, it should, like so many studies show that women won't ask for a raise until they meet 100% of the qualifications, or won't ask for a promotion, whereas men it's 60%, right? When they meet about 60% of the qualifications, they'll ask for a raise or they'll ask for a promotion or apply for a job. And for women, it's 100%. And it's because from the time we're little, we become sort of people pleasers, perfectionists a lot of times. And also we're scared to fail, and we wait until we think we're going to have it perfect to go, take the dream and take the big step and launch the thing. And I feel like that is such a disservice because we end up literally never stepping into the person we're born to be. We end up staying in our comfort zone, like letting it chip away at our soul. And you guys are living, breathing examples. And I hope and pray I am too, because oh my gosh, there's been so many things where I've been like, you know what? It's because I wasn't afraid to fail over and over and over. And I wasn't afraid to get rejected over and over and over and over, that this eventually happened, right? And you know, one big thing that that stands out to me is, you know, we were a couple years into our company and just hearing no's from everyone. I didn't know that one day the company would be a success, but I just kept having this feeling, kind of like when you just described, the person said, oh, you need to go to university to make it. And you're like, oh no, I don't think so, right? I just kept having this feeling that I was supposed to be doing it, but I didn't know how we were going to survive. And a couple of years into the business, we got a call from a potential investor. And I was so excited because we were down to no money. And this investor ran this big private equity company, and they invested in all of these consumer product companies that we all buy in the grocery store, like big names and they invested in a lot of them when they were teeny tiny before anyone knew them, and made them in household names. And I was freaking out because I'm like, oh my gosh, if they invest in our company, A, I'm not going to go bankrupt. B, maybe they can use their leverage to get us into these stores that are telling me no. I was so excited, and we started the meetings, and meeting after meeting, and we got to the diligence phase, which is where we show them, future product launches and projections and all that. And it came down to the last meeting, and I thought it was the day my life was going to change. And I'll never forget, my husband and I flew up for the meeting, and we were standing there about 3 feet away from the head guy. And he thanked us, and he said, we really love your product, but it's a no. We're going to pass on investing in IT Cosmetics, right?
Aww.
And I sat there and I said, okay, can you tell me why? Can you give me some feedback? Because feedback's usually a gift. And I'll never forget this moment in my life. It was a defining moment. And I think so many people will be able to relate to this, because we all have these moments in different ways. But when I asked him, like, oh, why is it a no? He looked at me and he's like 3 feet from my face. And he said, do you want me to be really honest with you? And I said, yes, please. And he said, I just don't think women will buy makeup from someone who looks like you with your body and your weight.
No, he did not. Oh my God. Oh my God.
You're freaking lying.
Oh my God.
And I sat there, and it was wild because for me, a lifetime of body doubt, like flooded my body all at once. And I was watching these words come out of his mouth. 2 things happened though. And this is your story reminded me of this story. 2 things happened in that moment. I mean, listen, I went to my car and bawled my eyes out. I had to figure out how to not replay those words over and over forever. But in that moment when he's literally 3 feet from me saying those words, I remember distinctly, I remember having this feeling in my gut, like deep down inside, like he's wrong. Just like what you just said about university, I was like, he's wrong. And I knew it, I felt it. And I also realized, oh, wow, this dude is passing on investing in my company because he's just as much, I don't want to say a victim, but impacted by the whole beauty industry too, that tells you have to look a certain way to make money, right? So it fueled me more to keep going. And one last thing to share, just because I think it's fun when we share our victories too, is 6 years later, the day L'Oreal acquired IT Cosmetics, they did a big press release, so it went everywhere. When the day I sold my company, and it was all over the homepages of Wall Street Journal and everywhere. And I hadn't heard from him in 6 years, and I actually got an email from him, and he said, "Congratulations," from that investor, the guy that said no. Yes. He said, "Congratulations! I'm so happy for you. I was wrong." And
wow.
Yeah, and I, this is the cool part about life, is I learned it would have been the most successful investment in his firm's history, but also cat and nat. I'm telling you, there's a famous saying, rejection is God's protection, which you could also say rejection is the universe's protection, right? It applies differently for everybody. But had he not rejected me, I was so desperate at the time, I probably would have given him the majority of the company for almost no money, and thought and been grateful, because he didn't believe in me, even though it sucked at the time. It was so painful. Fast forward 6 years, we were still the biggest shareholders of the company when we sold it. So it was life changing. So thank God he didn't believe in me at the time. And anyways, sometimes we get these rejections and they suck, but I try to keep that faith.
I think it's so important to remember though too, that failure and rejection aren't just because you can handle it doesn't mean you don't feel it. So you can totally feel you can get it. It can get you down, and that I think a lot of people think that rejection and failure, when you have gone through it, you're kind of I'm immune to it. It's fine. It's good. No, you can still definitely, but how do you move through it?
And if you don't feel it, you don't grow from it. right? Like
Yeah.
if you don't feel anything, you might be a little bit too medicated or something, but you have to feel.
That's okay.
True, you got to be able to still feel, and yeah, to be able to feel it exactly. If you were just like not feel it and carry on, you wouldn't have learned that wasn't the right person for you, and that wasn't the person that was going to put forth your company the way you wanted it to be, because you absolutely needed to be the leader of this company for it to be the way that it to sell the way that it did and do so well. And if they had put, who knows who you would have put in your place.
I love that you share that it's okay to feel it. Cause yeah, even to this day, I feel it. I feel hurt to this now. Anytime I get rejected, or anytime like a friend doesn't show up for me how I hope they would, or you know what I mean? I mean,
Yes.
To this day, it like will destroy me inside. And I think it's good to share those things, because I think a lot of people are embarrassed when they sob their eyes out for days, or they feel like it's a weakness. I don't think it is. I think
or
it's
when you get rejected, that feeling of rejection is like, it's ironic you share that story, because we were out in LA for TV and we got a huge deal in February. Fast forward, and
it was a year ago. It was the best call
agents were like, this is unheard of, this doesn't happen. Our agent at WME called us. Fast forward to April, the deal's gone, done, because of life's COVID, all the circumstances, maybe.
Or protection.
Yep. Or protection. And it was like it was like, what? It was another knock, but it's, again, it fueled us to go, all right, where can we go next? How can we call? So I think what I love about what your book and what you're talking about, and, everyone needs the book, because women often, you see someone who has an idea and then you see the success, right? So I actually use Sarah Blakely as an example, who I don't know much about, but mad respect, because she obviously started it in her university room, Spanx from here to there. But her story is, you see that she had the idea, and then you see her building of success, and the in between. Everyone can say, I had hardships, it was really hard, I had no's, but when you can't relate to the story of a man sitting there and telling you to your face the reason you're not successful, it's very easy in your own brain, because storytelling is what brings us all together. When you can actually take the humanity in someone's story, then you can relate it to yourself and say, well, I can maybe do that, because maybe your mom or dad used to say that to you, that, that's a pipe dream. It's never going to happen. Get a real job.
Tell these folks a little bit about starting, a $1 billion company in your house on the floor. And maybe what's the mindset to go when you have all the doubt?
Yeah. Well, the first and most important thing is doubt's so normal, right? Doubt, imposter syndrome, thinking, oh, do I have what it takes? Right. So anyone out there feeling that right now, it's universal. And Brendan, I don't know if you've had this experience, but the more people that I've looked up to for decades, some of the most incredible people in the world I've had the blessing of meeting now, they all say the same thing. They even still now, when they launch a new thing or a new network or a new anything, right? A book, they all actually deal with the same thing of, do I have what it takes? Am I enough? How will this be received? Is this going to matter? Do I belong? I mean, all those things that people don't want to admit they feel, we all feel them. Even people that it just blows me away and makes me feel less alone when I hear them share those things, which is why I love that we're, all coming together in community for Growth Day Morning Show.
Ladies and gentlemen, rock this house and welcome to the stage, Jamie Kern Lima! Kern Lima!
Every single one of us has had someone tell us we're not enough. Every single one of us has had someone say words to us that hurt.